going to be talking about the importance of the Rakuten Partner Ecosystem, one that is specifically open and enables systems integrators, sales partners, and a wide variety of partners to deliver much better value services to customers more broadly. Welcome to all our panelists. Thank you very much. I'll be introducing you individually as I come to each of you. But to start off with you, SK. So SK, our SVP of Partner and Portfolio Management for Rakuten Symphony. Thank you very much for joining. As Rakuten Symphony builds its open partner ecosystem, what are the foundational pillars for its sustainability and impact? And how does it empower its partners? And what does that mean specifically to empower partners?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for having me, James. James, Rakuten Symphony does not treat partners as distributors or resellers like our predecessors did, like the industry giants right now do. They have a way of dealing with their products and services that they just push out to their distributors and resellers. And once they do that, then the distributors and resellers are not really adding any value to those products and services. They're just pushing those solutions or products towards the customers as is. We, as Rakuten Symphony, are quite different from that approach. We believe, and we have those 4 pillars that we always talk about with our partners. We have the openness in mindset that we need where the collaboration comes and takes place. By that, what I mean is if there is something that our partners are always hearing from the industry, they have those trickle-down effects from what they understand in terms of the needs and requirements of the customers. They then trickle that information down to Rakuten Symphony, and we support to collaborate with them and try to build that engineering behind those products and solutions which are required in the market. The second thing that we really push our partners and actually expect our partners to come out with is the innovation mindset. Our industry is always thriving with new products, new solutions, technology that comes into play. We had various different eras of technology taking place. AI is the new buzzword. AI is the new game. So we basically ask our partners to look into that innovation mindset where they can come and bring in new functionalities, new features, and work with us to do so. The third thing that I always talk about our partners is they need to have a core skill set. Rakuten has multiple types of products and solutions on the offer. We have our Open RAN, as we always talk about. We have cloud native platform, cloud native storage, now object storage, and cloud native orchestration. We have our OSS suite of products as well. But we're really looking for those partners, always talk to those partners who have certain core skill set that aligns them towards the solutions that we are basically offering to the market and offering to them as well. So that core skill set is really important, the experience behind it. And the fourth one that I always emphasize on with the partners is to try and grow together as a scalable partner. We really need that operational enablement. What we're looking for in the industry is a partner that has a certain base where we can launch together with their additional resources, with the platforms that they're bringing in, with the training that we can provide to them. We can enable their resources from that perspective. What that does, James, is enable the partner to be able to represent our solutions, our products, and our USP to the market correctly, to the market in a way where our Rakuten DNA can actually be explained to the customer in a correct manner, in a correct way. So that's where I'd say our 4 fundamental pillars of partnerships are.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And like you say, I think particularly over the last couple of years, we've seen a real evolution in that approach. And like you say, making our partners an extension of Rakuten and not just treating them merely as resellers, let's say. Ahmed Bilal, thank you very much for joining us. So Ahmed Bilal, SVP of America's Network Services from Tech Mahindra, thank you for joining us. My question to you is, so building on Rakuten Symphony's vision, how do SIs like Tech Mahindra identify critical elements and create collaborative behaviors that really advance the Open RAN ecosystem. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. I think I would just take the what SK was saying about innovation. One of the key components that SIs bring and should bring and must bring is about how do we innovate. So telcos around the world have been building digital highways. And then they've been collecting tolls on top of those digital highways. And but the further progression of how can we leverage those highways to build more and more adjacencies so that we can monetize them, that's how we bring the innovation. So we look at certain use cases that we can bring. We look at certain adjacencies that can be offered by Open RAN. Since we are disintegrating now, there is no monolithic systems. How can we leverage that and bring those kind of roadmaps for our partners? Now, the roadmaps have been traditionally built on what type of technology needs to be there. Our goal is not to just look at the technology from the roadmap perspective, but also look at the end user. So technology wise, the end user doesn't really care where they are sitting on an open RAN or on a monolithic RAN. What we, our purpose is to have that partnership and that collaboration where they believe that it's all about um, the customer experience. And how does we take that customer experience over the next 3 quarters or 6 quarters, whether it is on the consumer side or enterprise side, and bring that as a partnership back to our partners like Rakuten Symphony, and then create that kind of experience going back towards the customer. So that's the value. So obviously, bringing that innovation, bringing that monetization factor, so that once the Open RAN systems or even the horizontal clouds or anything that are deployed, the customers are not just paying for the toll. They are actually able to use that and have a lot more use cases, whether it is, if you talk about industrial monetization at the edge, right? With AI RAN coming in, how can we take that open, disaggregated, programmable RAN and share it between Open RAN systems as well as up with the AI, which is can be SMBs or any small enterprises. So that's the kind of innovation and collaboration that we would like to bring to our partners. And that is a very critical component. And since we have been working with Rakuten Mobile and then Rakuten Symphony since their inception, I think we have created that kind of ecosystem where this innovation can now thrive going forward.
Thank you very much, Hakaned. Much appreciated. Welcome to you, Binu Cherian, Global Head of Sales and Solutioning for CMI at TCS. Thank you for joining us. In your opinion, so beyond technology, which business and operational transformations are most important for operators and partners to thrive in an open partner ecosystem, avoiding vendor lock-in?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for this opportunity, James. I would start with what SK said. It is not about deploying a piece of technology, and what Ahmad said, and it's all about innovation. To make all of this happen, what we see is that it is important that we create a joint vision as to what we want to jointly achieve for the enterprise, and then create a partnership operating model as to how do you work together to achieve that vision, and then making sure that we govern it properly to make sure that whatever we deploy, we have an end goal so that we can replicate the success from one unit to other, one customer to other. So the key is to creating that partnership operating model and the governance to execute this, and making sure that all of us know where do we fit in the larger story, and then integrate the whole story and take it to market.
Thank you very much. So back to you, SK. So how does Rakuten Symphony enable its open partner ecosystem to leverage a wide variety of things, including the assets, data, and reach of the Rakuten ecosystem for mutual growth?
Right. Um, Look, it's not a secret now that ARPUs have been declining for kind of decades now. Um, it was voice that we started with 20 years ago. Voice was chargeable, then voice became free. Then it was data. Data was chargeable. Bandwidth was being provided by the operators. Now we've come to a stage where ARPUs are so much declined that it's very difficult for the MNOs to even survive with the current revenue that they have from their networks. So how do they monetize this network? What do they do that actually increases their revenue and get them to go over this hump and possibly go to 6G and then open up new wide varieties of more services, etc. But this hump has to be gotten over. Um, and the proof is in the pudding that Rakuten Group overall, utilizing Rakuten Mobile and Rakuten Symphony together with the wide variety of services, more than 70 services is what Rakuten Group basically provides to the consumers. We have now come up with an ecosystem that we can offer to our end consumers or end customers, I would say, with the help of the partners like Tech Mahindra, like TCS. And with that ecosystem, MNOs can convert into a more technology company where they can monetize that data, the data that they collect from their, wide variety of consumers, enterprise consumers, the normal consumers that they have, the subscribers that they have, the members that they have. And with that data, they are sitting on a gold mine, as Mickey mentioned in his keynote at the main stage. They're sitting on a gold mine, and that gold mine needs to be addressed. What Rakuten can provide are those baked systems and mature systems and platforms that we use, such as Rakuten Point, Rakuten Viber, Cartera. These are multiple different services that we provide to our members in Japan and elsewhere. This is exactly what's on the offer. So now, from this year onwards, we're going to include our partners in this game. And we're basically going to ask our partners to take these solutions to the customers along with our ORAN, OSS cloud. Please bring this ecosystem to the customer so that they can utilize the data that they're basically getting from their subscribers. Of course, albeit all the privacy laws and all that jargon to go with. But at the end of the day, that data can help them convert those customers and monetize their other services in other verticals that they can venture themselves into. So MNO is not MNO anymore. In our eyes, MNO can be a tech giant with multiple verticals they can work with: health, finance, just to name a few. So this is how we're going to actually support our partners and the overall bigger ecosystem. And we'll try to deliver to the promise that Mickey made, that we're going to disrupt the market, and we're going to disrupt the market in a way that our MNOs and our end customers are actually going to like.
Indeed, a lot of potential there. I think a lot of interesting stats from Japan. Users more likely to spend 48% extra on the e-commerce site, having been a mobile customer. Lots of potential for that kind of success to be exported in international markets. Thank you, SK. Back to you, Ahmed. So, in your opinion, just how critical are standardized testing frameworks, collaborative pre-integration labs, and neutral certification programs in building operator confidence across this ecosystem?
So I think that's very interesting question, and we should really look at the fact that, do we really need to reinvent the wheel, or should we get the wheel moving faster? Because if there is already tested certifications and all the life cycle testing has been completed, IoT testing has been done, and it has been standardized, it can absolutely reduce it by 30-40%. But let's look at in a different way. Do we still have the same amount of time to do the testing as we used to have earlier? Probably not. So it's not anymore calendar years that we look at. So in a calendar year, you have 12 months, but now we look at, as SIs, we look at calendar years, internet years, and AI years. In a calendar years, you have 4 internet years. In one internet years, you have 6 AI years, because look at the speed the AI is evolving. So if you want to go with that, obviously the previous pre-integrated test systems needs to be there, but now they needs to be much more faster with all these AI improvements and so on. And on top of that, if we look at the what SK was saying about monetization of ecosystem, now the testing systems should be obviously as standard as they should be able to get things faster. But then you don't have to go in a waterfall format that when you finish one, then you go for the next one, right? So what you want to do now is, let's take an example of IoT, right? If you go and do an IoT, you are selling for connectivity for $5 a month. But if you build an ecosystem on that and you create observability at the edge, now what you can do is you can do the observability of the machines. And for the same $5, which you were charging per month for that IoT connectivity, by building the ecosystem, what SK is saying, you can now charge them $25 because that machine observability at the edge was not there before, which through the IoT connectivity you have brought. Now, do you need to test that and create an entire testing ecosystem and repeat those tests? No. That's where the agentic AI comes in, where you can deploy those agents which can test the end output and then define or redefine what types of there. So, in summary, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, but at the same time, it should be flexible enough to adopt those use cases, especially observability at the edge.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. Back to you, Binu. So, back to Open RAN just for a second. So, in your opinion, to ensure Open RAN is commercially viable and scalable, which specific advancements in automation, including AI ops, zero-touch provisioning, are really critical in order for that model to succeed?
Yeah, so I'll again go back to what SK was saying. It's when you deploy a technology, monetization is key. So they are buying an outcome. What is that buying outcomes that we are selling? I'll go back to what Ahmad was saying in terms of the $5 charge. Today there is a monthly subscription we pay for data. Now all of us also started paying for monthly intelligence cost, which is the inference cost. So can we telcos combine both intelligence and data as one single service and give? And in fact, technologies like Open RAN is able to do that at scale. So it is about driving two things. One is how can we monetize? Second, how can we reduce operations cost? So for that, automation is key and foundation. And that automation has to be an enterprise level and it has to be outcome driven. It can't be in silos in one partner, two partners. It has to be at an enterprise level. So the roadmaps, what we create, Ahmad, you touched upon that in terms of creating the roadmaps. The roadmaps, what we create has to be enterprise level, and the deployment can be a multi-partner model, but it has to be an outcome led. So outcome led mindset with monetization is what makes the difference for ORAN to scale.
Thanks very much, Binu. So, Ahmed, back to you. If we can just quickly ask you about the specific market that you oversee, the Americas. Based on your perspective and experience, what unique market dynamics and demands, especially in those markets, are essential for open partner ecosystems? What really matters most, and how does your strategy at TechM address those nuances?
Absolutely. I think that is the critical function that a system integrator plays, where they look at an overarching approach that a telco should take forward, and not just the telcos, right? The enterprise and all of, if you look at the private 5G deployment. So interestingly, America's North and South America have two very different personalities. North America is about innovation. There is no capex. I mean, there is capex constraint, but not at to a point where you have in Latin America. So Latin America, where it is all about efficiencies, how can you run efficient systems, how can you return on capex much faster. But at the same time, if I go back to North America, it's all about the solutions which SK was earlier talking about. How can we create innovation? So the monetization, as we have already talked about, it is always has been just paying for the connectivity, for the data, for the voice. And as I earlier said, my favorite is the digital highways are built. Now everybody's just paying toll. But how about building a restaurant on that digital highway? How about building adjacencies? Can we now use those adjacencies, for example, location based or any type of data that we can monetize further? So we are working with disruptors, we are working with companies to come up with those kind of monetization use cases where telcos, OEMs, system integrators, consulting firms, they go together to end users. We have built in Americas, we have built the network for the humans. It's reached its peak. Each human is using at least 2 to 3 networks at the same time. Now the time has come where now we need to start building for machines, humanoids, autonomous cars, and so on and so forth. In order to do that, it has to be a very different approach. It is not about just the data. It is also about the latency. And then we have all these, what you talked about, AI, right? Earlier, downlink was important, then uplink became important. Now, again, it's downlink becoming important, right? You're sending a simple prompt and then you're getting huge amount of data back. So these are the kind of things that we are seeing unique in North America. And we would we partner accordingly and solve those problems by looking at the enterprise roadmaps.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. We're pretty much coming to time now, but SK, are there any kind of final words you want to offer? Any final messages, and indeed messages you want to offer to our valued partners here,
Absolutely.
Mahindra and TCS?
Sure. Thank you, James, for giving me the opportunity to say things to the partners. Look, last year, Rakuten Symphony signed up more than 17 partners. We are intending to sign up a lot more this year. But signing a partner is not really important for us. Signing the right partner is important for us. What we're really looking at this point in time in terms of partnerships are those partners who have hunger to grow, who have the resources, or even the intent to be able to provide solutions to the market that market is looking for. Rakuten Symphony is happy to support both financially in terms of financing from our Japan sources to those partners. We are also supportive in lending our resources, our teams to try and bring the partners up to speed. We've been working with giants like TCS and Tech Mahindra, but we also want to work with some regional partners, local partners who have the connects with the customers, who have the connects with the enterprises in their own regions. And that's how we want to trickle the message down. We want to spread the benefits of what we have seen in Rakuten Mobile. And you can imagine that we actually have more than 120,000 sites with merely 1,000 people running those 120,000 sites. So that itself is a testament of how O-RAN can change the world when it comes to OPEX, especially TCO and OPEX.
So thank you very much, SK. Ladies and gents, big round of applause, please, for our panelists, SK, Ahmed Bilal, and Binu Cherian.